And now we're on the top of Taf Yud Gimel Amid Beis. Al Tikri Lishlish. The drasha has it. We don't read it as Lishlish. Ella. You don't read it as Lishlosh, meaning for the 3-year period. Ella Lishlish, which means that the Asiyas Hatvua, the Asisa, is in the year when it grows a shlish. And before it reaches shlish, it's not called tvua. So this is going to establish the halacha that tvua is dependent upon avah shlish. So the Gemara says, what right do you have to darshan that shalosh should be interpreted as shlish? Shalosh is pshuto shel mikra. V'hami boile legufe. I need the word shlish for the pasuk itself. Shalosh, for the pasuk itself, to tell you that the produce of the 6th year will be blessed and it will be ample supply for 3 full years. Every drasha has got to be based on a redundant word. This word is needed in its context. So Gemara says, no, I don't need it in its context because ksiv kra achrina. We have another pasuk a little bit later on, and it says, uzratem es Hashana Shminis, Bachaltem in Atvua Yashan, Ad Hashana Chias. That in the 8th year, you'll be able to eat old Tvua, which means the Tvua that came from earlier. Now, when is earlier? It can't be from Shemitah, because you didn't do any work during Shemitah. It's got to be from the 6th year. So already I can calculate 1, 2, 3 years and derive the conclusion that God promises he will bestow the blessing and the Tvua of the 6th year will last for 3 full years. Is Memela, when it says L'shalosh shanim, it's totally redundant, and I darshan that it's Lishlish. Non Hasam, we learned in a Mishnah in Shvius, Orez. Now, Orez is what we call rice. Vadochan is what we call millet. Rashi actually, not here but elsewhere, brings the laws in French, which is very similar to the word millet. Vaprogim, progim is a specific type of kidneys, of a legume that is called progim because it's very similar to a pomegranate. Just like a pomegranate is full of seeds, so too the progim are full of seeds. Vashumshamin, shumshamin are sesame seeds. All the above, we had 4 categories of kitnios meaning legumes, because orez v'dochan are legumes. Sheshrishu l'fnei Rosh Hashana misasrim l'sha'avar. What does that mean? Ishrishu. Normally, in Tvua, the year of the Tvua for Masros is determined by Havah Shlish. In the case of Peros HaIlon, it's determined by Shvat. In the case of Yerakos, it's determined by Likita. When did you cut it down? But there's a unique halach in Kitnios that the year of Kitnios is determined by Hashrasha. When did it take root? And therefore, if you have Hashrasha before Rosh Hashana of these various types of Kitnios, then the Kitnios belong to last year. Umutar b'shvius. If it was the 6th year of the Shemitah cycle, they lack Kiddush HaShvius. Again, the Hashrasha took place in Shishis. You're not going to be pulling out these legumes for a good while into Shvius, but nevertheless, they have the din of Shishis. I mean, it's relevant to today. Let's say you go buy rice today, you can be sure that it took Hashrasha before Rosh Hashana, and it's Shishis. V'im lav. But if, on the other hand, the Hashrasha took place after Rosh Hashana, the 7th year, Asurim v'shvius u'misasrim l'shana haba. As far as Meiser is concerned, it belongs to the new year post Rosh Hashana. Amar Rabba, Amar Rabbanan, Elon basar chanata, Tvua v'zeisim basar shlish, Yerek basar lekita, Hani kaman shavinu Rabbanan. When the Rabbanan established the growth of the legumes that determines the year of Masa, the year of Shvius, they didn't fit into any pre-existing pattern. Did they find something unique in legumes that generated a new category in Zraim, in the world of Zraim, that doesn't fit into any pre-existing categories that we're familiar with? It's neither Chanata like Peres Elon, nor Shlish like Tvu and Zaysim, nor Lakita like Yerakos. Hashrasha, a new category called Hashrasha. When did it take root? Which is probably shortly after the planting. Other Amar Rabbah, Rabbah now offers an answer to his own question. This is what you call who mosiv love, who mafarik. I'm going to supply for you the explanation as to why the Rabbanan determined that kidneos depend upon Hashrosh. Mitoch shasuyim prachim prachim. The purpose of planting and harvesting kidneos is to get these little seeds, as many seeds as you possibly can. And that's called prachim. Prachim is called in Hebrew hotzas zare hakidneos. In other words, there's a chaff, and when you open up the chaff, you will see the zroim, the garinim, these seeds of the kidneos. But there's no standard uniform time when all the kidneos have reached the stage of pricha. So that even if you were to plant kidneos, a bunch of kidneos simultaneously, nevertheless the pricha, when the zrayim are full, would be different from these kidneos to the other. So therefore you can never do a lakita at one time for all these kidneos, meaning in general in vegetables, Yerakos, then you plant the Yerakos and they will be ready for harvesting all the Yerakos at the same time. So the Lakita is the time which determines the entire species of Yerakos. But in the case of kidneos, you cannot say that the time is equal for all of the kidneos because it all depends on pricha, and we're not ready to do the lakita for all these kidneos. There may be some kidneos that reach pricha, others did not. So we need to find a time period in the development of the kidneos in this case that is uniform for all. And since it goes piecemeal, la'at, la'at, you cannot say that lakita will determine the year of the mice. Is therefore Azli Rabbanan Bas Hashrosh. The Hashrosh will be simultaneous for all the kidneos that you planted at that time. The Kevon Shechiyuv Peros Maser Beperos Yerakos V'Kidneos U'Drabbanan, because the Torah only requires Maser in Degancha, Tiroshcha, and Yitzrecha. So the Chiyuv Doraisa of Maser only applies to the 5 species of grains plus Zaysim V'Anovim. Is therefore when we get to other Peros Elon and Yerakos and Kidneos, those are all Meiser D'Rabbanan, and the Rabbanan determined they have the koach and the authority to be kovea the zman for each of these categories, and they were kovea that with regard to Kidneos, the critical time period is the time of Hashrosh. Amalei Abaye objects to Rabbah. You think that we have to exclude Lakita. Why? Because the different kidneos belong to different periods of time. These kidneos had a Hashrasha, had a Pricha last year, before Rosh Hashana. These kidneos had their Pricha after Rosh Hashana. I have a simple solution to this problem. The Yitzbar Garno Letocho, why doesn't he just combine all the kidneys together in one goren, in one pile, and then he could be Torem, he could be Mafresh his Truma or his Meiser on this entire tree, so sorry, I forgot to shut off my phone. On this entire Kri, and part of the Hafrasha will be from the new one, and part of it will be from the old one, from last year. In other words, the premise of Abaye, and we'll soon see how he proves it from Rab Shimon Chizuri, is that this blila. Bila means that you can mix it all together, and therefore you could always know that when you take something from this mixture, there'll always be a representation of all the different ingredients and the components in this mixture. Nimtza, Toreh min achada shebo al achada shebo, min hayashin shebo al hayashin shebo. Since you have a blili yafa and it's all mixed together fine, you can say that I'm taking yashan for the yashan and chadash for the chadash, because I know in what I take out there'll be a representation of both. Milo Sanya, Rabbi Yossi ben Kippur Omar, Mishum Rab Shimon ben Shizuri, Pul HaMitzri is a very unique kind of kitnios. It's a kitnios that is very common in Mitzrayim. Shezra'ol is zera. If he planted it because he wants to eat the seed, then it has a din of kitnios, and it depends upon Hashrasha. And Miksaso Hitchish Lefnei Rosh Hashana, Miksaso Hitchish the Achar Rosh Hashana. So now we have a problem, because some of this whole HaMitri reached the stage of Hashrasha before Rosh Hashanah belonging to last year, some after Rosh Hashanah belonging to this year. Ein Torah Masim Mizel Zeh. So what does he do in this case? He has this lakita of kitnios. Part of them were nishrach before Rosh Hashanah, part after. Kate said, said, sover grono letocho. He puts them all together, mixes them together, and it's what he called ma'urav heitev. And nimtza, therefore, Torah mumasim min achadash shebo al achadash shebo min hayash shebo al yasha. In other words, we're going to rely on blila yafa, that it's all mixed up, such that whenever you take out, you have a representation of yashan and chadash, last year's and this year's. So why did the Rabban have to be Masechet and make a new takana of kidnios, breaking all the rules of Zerayim, and establish that kidnios depends on Hashrosh? They just could have used this method if you have a problem that, these kitnios were last year's kitnios and these are this year's kitnios, just mix them all together. So Rabbi says, Rab Shimon Jezurish Kamrit. You're right. You have a simple solution. Rabbi Shimon Shezuzi Savri Yesh Blila. But for Rabbanan, Savri ain't Blila. The Rabbanan rejected the sheet of Rabbi Shimon Shezuri. It's a Das Yachid. It's just a dissenting view of the minority. And they held the Chachamim that there's no such thing as Bila Yafa. You can't rely on Bila Yafa. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Nachmani, Rabbi Shmuel, Halachic Rabbi Yossi ben Kippur Shama Mishum Rabbi Shimon Shezuri. Now, at first glance, it seems that Rabbi Yitzchak bar Nachmani, in the name of Shmuel, is accepting the principle of Yesh Bila, meaning that Blila is a Blila Yafa. So therefore, if you have Miktas that was Mashrish before Rosh Hashanah, Miktas after Rosh Hashanah, you can mix them all together and be Mashrish. No. The Gemara says that can't square with Shmuel. Maskif le Rav Zera umi Amar Shmuel hachi. Did Shmuel actually accept the halach of Yesh Bila? Like Rav Shimon Shezuri v'Amar Shmuel. Shmuel gave a hurrah. He paskin, he ruled in a case of Meiser when there was a tarovis, a mixture of Chadash v'Yashan. L'kol ein Bila. You can only have Bila mixture in liquids, but not in solids. Chutz b'yayin v'shemen. So you can apply the principle of Bila and rely on a tarovis yafa in the case of a liquid, but not in the case of a solid. So you see clearly that Shmuel holds in a yavesh, a double yavesh, that's not a liquid, like Pula Mitzri, ain't Bila. So how can he possibly accept the halacha of Rav Shimon Chizuri? And the Gemara answers, Ishta Mitzeh, when Rav Zera asked this question, he had forgotten about another statement of Shmuel. The Amar Shmuel, Akol Holech Achar K'mar Pri. That even in Kitnios, we don't go Basar Ashrasha. Shmuel is a dissenting view. He holds it all depends on Gmar Pri, not when it's rooted, but when it's ready to be harvested. And therefore, when Shmuel said Allah of Shum ben Chizuri, what he meant to say is that if he did a blila of all of that which was nishrash in the same year with tfuah that was nishrash in another year, you could be Torim Zelazeh, not because of Shum Chizuri, not because of Yesh Bila, because Shmuel holds that Yesh Bila only applies in liquids and not in solids, but rather because he holds you don't go Basar Ashrasha, but rather Basar Gemar Pri. Okay, then, so this is where we're going to stop. And in Mirza Hashem, we will record Daf Yudalid, which is Shabbos. And you can trust me, we won't do it on Shabbos, we'll do it before Shabbos, and you can see it online. So I want to take this opportunity, thank you, and to wish you all a Shabbat Shalom. And thank you for joining me for the whole week. I think we accomplished a great deal.
Rabbi Berzon?
Yes.
What time did the shir begin this morning?
We started a little bit late today. We started, I think it was at 8:40. I'm still trying to work out my Friday schedule. It's very complicated. I'm juggling a few different things on Friday because that's the day that I have to be at home. The rest of the week, I leave at 5 a.m. from Har Nof to get to Katamon. So it's the only morning I'm here. So I'm doing a lot of different things that I didn't do during the week.
But generally, Friday morning is in the area of 8:30 because I zoomed in at 8:30. I thought maybe you changed along the way and I didn't get the message.
It's still officially 8:30, and Amir Hashem next week will be 8:30.
I see.
This week,
oh, it's fine.
This week we started at 8:40.
I see. So
and we'll see. You know, the dust hasn't settled yet exactly in place. I would like to ask you if 11 a.m. could work. And then maybe we would give the shir at 11 a.m. But we'll see as we go along. All right, have a good